Well, hello, new friend.
Hey, everybody.
How are you?
Hey,
I am great. So excited to be here.
We're
Wow.
excited to have you, and this has been such an awesome day. And I, myself, I'm learning so much about the different ways that we can do better when it comes to sustainability. But I'm also having a lot of fun heckling Art over here. Hey, Art, how's that plant doing, by the way?
you know what? First, I would just want to say it's still alive, but now I just want to say we're complete here, except for our Stephanie, our ASL translator today. Everyone now in the picture has at least some greenery behind them, although mine is a little yellow. But
Yeah,
hey,
the sun is reflecting off the plastic that it is. So hey,
hey,
how are you? What is it that you do at AWS, and
Well,
what are we
and
going to be?
full disclosure, this one is fake, right? And so, I'm not going to pretend it's a real one here.
all right.
Well, hey, I'm so glad to be here. My name is Laith Al-Sadoun, and I am a principal prototyping architect here at AWS.
I've heard about you folks, and you guys do some awesome building thing. I actually saw this really cool demo at reInvent in Vegas. That was like the smart farm where it was planting seeds and looking for weeds and all this other stuff on the what was it, the second floor. But yeah, you guys do some awesome stuff. And what is it that you want to talk to us that you've prototyped and built aside from probably something that's going to take over the planet? No pun
Yeah, nothing
intended.
to take over the planet, but really I'm excited to just share about some of the possibilities and what we've learned working with customers to really prove and make available like a trustworthy system for tracking carbon emissions and carbon offsets using blockchain.
Now, real quick, because I know there's a lot of folks that may have heard of blockchain, and there's folks that know what blockchain is. Give me like a 15-second. This is what blockchain is.
Oh, you ready? You ready?
Yep. Timer.
Blockchain is like another database. I don't need 30 seconds. That's all I need.
Blockchain's another database, but it's
Ready?
non-refutable, right?
It's immutable. There's some data structure things, but when I talk to customers, I say, look, you remember when you maybe went from SQL relational databases to something more NoSQL like DynamoDB or something like that. This is kind of that same realm with some data semantics, but the power of using it as a decentralized, immutable database for carbon tracking is really the key. And if I close the session and everyone remembers one thing, it's that, hey, this is a great distributed, decentralized database for an open and auditable carbon emission and carbon offset system.
I think that this is, by the way, awesome. Your definition of it is pretty cool, number one, and I think it's the easiest way I've heard blockchain described. Number one, I know Kyle loves blockchain, but I think a lot of people out there have heard of blockchain in conjunction with something completely different than we're talking about today. So the importance of defining it for this particular topic is super valuable because it's a technology independent of that other topic altogether, right? And I think the technology itself is super powerful and very important for all of us, kind of the certification of that. So let's kind of get into a little bit more about it here and about how you use blockchain to do the credit tracking and the, excuse me, and the like.
And if I recall, you had some nice little visuals to go along to help us kind of follow along with what we're going to be talking about, right?
I did, yeah. So let's see if I can pull those up. Wow. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, okay. So before we get into the blockchain aspect of it, right, I just want to set the foundation. And, I've been sitting and listening to all of these great sessions so far, and I've heard the topic over and over again: carbon accounting, carbon tracking systems, and really an important concept that is a foundation for really doing anything on blockchain is having a great carbon accounting system. So carbon accounting is just like other financial accounting systems, ledgers, and so on. It's basically debits and credits of CO2 either emitted or CO2 removed through sequestration type projects, things like planting a lot of trees and so on, all with the objective of of really having a verified and open and trustworthy ledger of how we're reducing our carbon emissions and actually removing carbon from the atmosphere. So carbon accounting is key. You've heard about the various different scopes as well, but you need the system, much like the Sustainability Insights framework, by the way, shout out, to collect this data and automate it and make it part of an overall blockchain system.
Love the idea of the verification. Also the shout out to SIF as well. Of course, important here as we can connect all this, because all of these things and these concepts are kind of really interrelated, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, I'll just transition right into the blockchain, right? So what does blockchain have to do with it? You asked the question, what is it in 30 seconds? And I gave you my 5-second response. It's another
you exceeded any and all expectations for that explanation.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There are really 3 key parts of a blockchain. It consists of contracts, a distributed ledger, and consensus mechanisms. One of the tenets or the characteristics of a blockchain is that it builds trust in a network and eliminates the need for a central authority. And so that means multiple parties, a large number of parties, can interact on a ledger of sorts on this blockchain. And transfer of ownership is fully immutable and logged. The contract of how much CO2 I've either emitted or sequestered is logged and verifiable. The full sort of chain of custody of a asset, such as a carbon offset, would be available on the ledger and open to everyone. So together, these components provide that immutability and trust without a central authority, so it can be really open for everyone.
It's the ultimate trust and verification system, right? Like you're publicly putting out there what you own. We're publicly declaring it, and it also creates a tremendous amount of transparency. At least that's how I like to think of it, Laith, right? Because it's transparently distributed, but it also gives other people accountability. We know that you as a corporation or you as a person individually, like what you used here, particularly when we talk about these offsets, because we don't want to overcount the offsets as well, right? That's otherwise, that's a bit of the fraudulent characteristic, right? If I say I'm offsetting your carbon, right, this is an opportunity for you to know, is it real? Did it happen, right? And that's key to what's going on. We want that transparency.
Yeah.
All right. Distributed ledger.
Oh yeah, and Art, great point. It's all about it's tamper proof, right? So characteristic of a distributed ledger is that every transaction is really an event, a log on the ledger, and each one of these is actually cryptographically verifiable and append only. And so that's really what gives it that characteristic of trust and verifiable data on a distributed network. And because this distributed blockchain, it runs on multiple computers, PCs, servers. Even if it were possible to tamper with one place, it would basically just be resynced and you have that permanent record there, right? So this is a key characteristic of the blockchain. So really want to make sure that's
I think that it's interesting to me from a really geeky perspective, Kyle, how this conversation on sustainability could happen on Kyle and I have additional other AWS on air shows that we do, one on security that Kyle runs and mine has one on compute. And this conversation, Laith, could happen on either of those other conversations as well. I mean, the security element of it and also the sustainability side. So it's really cool. I think that people think of some of the times they think of sustainability and we think of just like one area of it, but the technology behind this and the verification and the security behind it is super important toward making sure that this is accounted. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting and a really, really powerful tool, especially when we kind of demystify how it can be used and how you can build, a system around it, especially for the enterprise and for developers. So I'll move a little bit quickly through here, but the part I mentioned earlier is a consensus mechanism, right? And this is how the network, the distributed ledger, and the nodes on that network agree that an event is saved and persisted and replicated across the network, the blockchain. There are different consensus mechanisms. I'm super stoked that the merge just happened about 6 months ago, and then kind of have the proof of stake consensus mechanism in Ethereum, the mainnet, which is the public blockchain. I'll get to that in a second. There are public and private blockchains. But if you're working on the open public Ethereum blockchain, which you can easily be a part of through AWS and our services, that blockchain uses something called the proof of stake. And they recently moved over to that about a year ago, maybe 6 months. And that actually reduced the overall emissions of the blockchain itself by 99.96%, I believe. So the actual compute power to run the cryptographic calculations for the blocks have actually been reduced by a significant amount. So that's another really exciting part about, just wanted to call out on the consensus mechanism, especially on Ethereum there.
I think Kyle's reaction to me at least said it all about the importance of it for those who couldn't see him briefly.
So yeah, when we're looking at this, is this something that has been released for consumption, or is there what can someone do with this right now?
Well, that's the question is, what can we do? How can we get started? What's out there right now? So, enterprises are actively using, especially private blockchains where it's an invite only participation between their peers, their supply chain, and, third party, partners, vendors, and so forth, to share and validate this information about carbon emissions. And, it's not just at the carbon emission level, it's, fuel, mileage, parts, number of vehicles, the type of vehicle. And, even right now, customers, one of the customers I'm working with is looking at how can we provide recommendation saying, hey, we know this much about your fleet of vehicles. You can change this. If you change this tire to this PSI and maintain the tread at a certain level, you can actually reduce your emissions that way too. So all of that kind of being built in a shared blockchain that's invited. Folks are invited as partners. So that's one thing that's really exciting about that.
So we're using technologies that our customers are already familiar with, and then changing the use case for how they can, apply it to carbon compensation and credits, and tracking that. So it shouldn't be something that's like, oh, this is scary because this is brand new. It's the technology's already been used for quite some time now. It's just now the purpose of the use case has shifted to a more sustainable type future too.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think
I love being right.
So ready to talk about what it's like to build on the blockchain?
I am.
A few minutes left, right?
Yeah, we got a few minutes left. I'd love to hear it.
Let's do it, right? So I'm willing to guess we have some, Web 3.0, maybe some blockchain developers out there. One of the key parts is of developing, this is kind of the bottom layer of building on blockchain, is you have to write smart contracts. This is the business logic that essentially accepts parameters and makes changes. You invoke it and makes changes on the chain, right? So this is the core building block where there's Ethereum is an open source blockchain system, and Hyperledger Fabric is the other, and each one has a syntax, a domain-specific language, if you will, for writing contracts. And luckily, both of them have open source tools available to sort of transpile from Python, for instance, over to their contract language. But this is really key, right? And when I said it's like a database, this is like writing a stored procedure on your database, right? It lives on the database, and you always pass it something, and it simplifies the way, that query looks under the hood. A smart contract in the same way is invoked through your software on the blockchain with the parameters, the right data input that you're providing, and then appends onto the chain. I'll fast forward here a little bit, if that's all right. So we talked a lot about blockchain in general. It's the decentralized is key. Part of it is key, right? That's the transparency. Speed is another one where there's no middle intermediates, right? So you're not going through another sort of carbon.
Yeah, there's no like broker or something.
Broker, right? Exactly. Yep. So this is direct interaction between you and your partners. And it just simplifies the overall flow of, basically credits and debits like you would in financing and accounting. Right? So I'm going to fast forward because I know we're just at time. I wanted to leave with two things. Blockchain is super easy to get started on AWS. You can instantly jump on the main net of Ethereum in minutes by running on Amazon Managed Blockchain. You can add contracts, tokens, wallets, etc., and participate there and easily. Everyone is available. You can also make a private one and invite your partners through the AWS account. So if they have an AWS account, you have an AWS account, you're good to go. You can share an invite through Managed Blockchain. And the last thing, so putting this all together, blockchain is just a small part of the system, right? You're going to make smart contracts, but you also need APIs, maybe off-chain storage with metadata, reference attributes, things like that, and APIs that essentially invoke or query the smart contract. So think about the fullness of AWS, the features, the capabilities that really build out the rest of the system. Because, like I said, it's just like a database. So you have to build, the other things around that database, the access layers and sort of CRUD layers, if you will, to make it all work. So it looks a little bit like this. You have your carbon accounting system, could be the CIF framework, and you have blockchain on the right, where now your company can automatically publish, your emissions, your offsets through to a blockchain, and it's open for everyone or your partners. So that is all I got. That was a lot.
That is a lot, but that is, yeah. Wow, I'm almost like Art's parrot here. It is awesome.
I love the combination of the geeky technology. I consider blockchain still fairly like geekier area, but also the kind of combination how it helps create a certain level of transparency, and we can use it here really well to create transparency and efficiency for sustainability. So Laith, really appreciate your joining us today to celebrate Earth Day, but also to kind of give us some cool ways to leverage technology here to kind of bring about this transformation that's needed.
Yeah, pleasure is mine. Really, thank you so much.
Yeah, and Laith, you got some fans out there thanking you for joining us. So,
all right, Laith. Hey, have a happy Earth Day and a wonderful weekend. Just be sure to stay away from grass because it's full of blades. Anyway, take care.
Oh gosh,
keep that fake plant alive.